I hope you don't mind if I say a few words about my friend Steve Wright, who I can't believe is gone. Just can't believe it. I had 20 years, the luckiest position of being the show before his. So whenever I went down to the office after my show or went off home, I could hear his show. Always the same, always different every day, but the same energy, the same kind of frantic love of everything, love of life, humor, laughter. God bless him. He, of course, did two things amazing in British radio. He joined Radio 1, the second generation of Radio 1. So Tony Blackburn was first on in 67, and then 1980-81 Steve arrived, and he had this daytime show. I was 15. It was extraordinary. So if you weren't around at the time, Steve in daytime on Radio 1 was just a wonder. You know, he had this zoo radio format. All these characters would call him Mr. Angry, and always somebody who used to ring in and say, I'll call you on the cellulite, meaning the cellular, saying the word skellington instead of skeleton, all these in-jokes. And I think that was exhausting. I mean, I think the production team must have been extraordinary with that. The second big thing he did was come to Radio 2 in the 90s. Now, I won't say that the station was near the knacker's yard. It wasn't. It was still posting great figures. But I remember, because I was a political correspondent in the 90s, that MPs were starting to say, why don't we have Radio 2? What's the point? What's it doing that's different? And it was genuinely in danger. And they'd had some bad management. They had a policy, a music policy that was known as Wurlitzer and Zither, which just meant you play the strangest music you can find to try and be distinctive. That didn't work. The listeners were going. And we had this incredible controller called Jim Moyer who came in. I wasn't at Radio 2 at the time, but he brought in Steve. And that was the sign that this was going to be more than just a lick of paint for the station. And I think it's fair to say that Steve in the 90s, not to take away of those amazing voices who, like Terry, like Ken Bruce, who were the continuum going right back, but Steve did reboot the radio station and gave it a new lease of life. So I joined in 2003, and I would say Ken and Terry and Steve, this incredible trio of broadcasters in daytime who were so lovely to me. I first listened to Terry Wogan doing Radio 2, the breakfast show, when I was 6. And then here he was, and I joined Radio 2 when I was 37, and he's still doing it, with a break in the middle for TV. So I was in awe, and I was addicted to radio, so much so that when I was on holiday, age 15 in Cornwall, the Radio 1 roadshow came to Newquay Beach, and I made sure I got to the front row to sit and watch. And by the way, the DJ on the stage, Steve Wright. So Ken, Steve, Terry, this amazing trio, was so lovely to the 37-year-old me and so welcoming. And Steve in particular, I would say, went out of his way to just be so encouraging. And you'll hear this a lot from my generation of broadcasters and below, that, you know, I can think of a couple of people who didn't know Steve, and he rang them up and said, just the same, I think you're doing an absolutely brilliant show. And I think he's a very unusual person. Someone on the air today said to me, you know, he was exactly the same off the air as on the air. That's not true. He was on the air. He was the broadcasting Steve Wright, and it was a very, very consummate, professional exercise. Off air, I think he was much shyer, much more authentic in a way, just in terms of he would almost front load his humility and grace. He wasn't interested in showing off. He was just somebody who I think liked to have true friends. And I was in awe because I loved radio, because I knew it's like, you know, you're doing a concert and you're opening for the Bee Gees or Neil Diamond or whoever it is, Paul Simon. In terms of radio, you're right at the apex with Steve. But my goodness, he would never have accepted that description. I couldn't believe it today when I heard the news. I just couldn't. I just felt an incredible sense of loss. And the manager who told me in the studio that he used for 18, 19 years in Wogan House. Wogan House is being gutted now, and we're moving to the main broadcasting house, and that's life. But it's all come at the same time. So the studio that Steve used for close on 2 decades has been hollowed out the last week. So you can go in it and there's carpet and a desk. His cart machines have gone, his computer wall, his CD players, he still played CDs, probably still played vinyl occasionally. So it's all been taken out as part of the move. And the fact that it's gone and then Steve has gone too just feels like an enormous hole in the middle of Radio 2. I know that we'll be on air today and tomorrow and the day after, but we'll always remember Steve. We'll always remember the incredible professionalism of the man and the way that he would, you turn on your radio and that's your friend. That's somebody you've had in your house for years and years and years. It's like when Wogan was asked, how many listeners do you have now, Terry? Is it 8 million now or is it 9 million? He said, no, it's only one. And with Steve, you knew you were the one. Rest in peace, my friend. You were a lovely, lovely, lovely man. And we'll miss you and we'll think of you every single day we turn on a microphone.
I was injured, miserable, and lost. Then Steve Wright saved me. Tributes are still flowing in for our beloved radio personality and DJ Steve Wright, who passed away yesterday. Wright's radio show was a life as I struggled with a broken leg and the mystery of what to do with my life. Imagine my joy when I finally got to meet him. I've only ever written one fan letter in my life, which is odd because I'm a fan of lots of people and things. This was in the early 90s. After I'd broke my leg and cumbered by numerous plastic casts, I was back with my parents, stuck in the house and stuck between college and whatever I was going to do with my rest of my life. I didn't have a clue what this would be, while I was blessed to have someone somewhere to be cared for. It was a dismal and disquieting time. A friend would wheel me off to the football every week and affording me the opportunity to see my club knock out the FA Cup by a team of part-timers, and then relegated to the old third division for the first time in our history. Other than that, I mainly sat home watching the 4 available channels. I saw Thatcher resign and the Go for Commerce. One of the first casualties, fighter pilot, was from our area. I lost a friend, lost mentor. I listened to a lot of radio, but the only specific program I called was Steve Wright in the afternoon. On every weekday, if ever I needed a cheering companion at my side. I'm really heartbroken. Rest in peace, my brother. I hope he was happy because he spread a great deal of happiness in his lifetime. Rest in peace, Steve.